everyone. It's your host, Amanda, the ADHD Lady, and we're starting a new series on this channel. I am so excited. We're going to be doing a Get Ready with Me and ADHD series. So I'm going to talk with you guys about a bunch of different ADHD topics as I put myself together for the day. Um, I will make a quick notation here. I do not take this long to actually get ready during the day. But because I'll be chatting with you guys, I don't know if you want to see the products and stuff I'm using. I guess throw that in the comments if you're interested as you follow along. Um, I'm not using anything fancy. But yeah, I'm looking forward to, experimenting, figuring this out with you guys. Um, so we'll get rolling. So, hi again. I'm Amanda, the ADHD lady. I am an ADHD coach with ADHD and ASD myself, just for a little bit of background. Prior to being a coach, I worked in special education for 8 years as an associate teacher, did numerous trainings for, my personal development on ADHD and autism and executive dysfunction. However, I really truly feel that what I learned in special education and through that professional development, that it just wasn't as significant as the courses I've taken after that position, and the things I've done for my own education, reading different books about these conditions. I do a ton of research as I put together different units for my coaching clients, creating different resources. And that is one thing that I eventually hope to do is to start creating, trainings that I can bring into schools so I can teach teachers, because I really feel like I learned so much more and after the fact and would have been a way more effective, support in special education if I had been better educated on these two conditions because they are one of the prominent conditions that you see going into special ed. But can't change the past, but can look forward to hopefully making some positive change for the future. But today I thought we would just talk a little bit about my journey with ADHD. I am a late diagnosed adult. So let's start doing some skincare and makeup and we'll chat about all that, I guess. But in the meantime, don't forget to hit that subscribe button and do all the things. You can find me on all the other platforms too under the ADHD Lady. Okay. All right. So I do also want to preface this whole series with the fact that this is new to me, right? So I am trying a whole new thing. I have my little webcam set up on my makeup mirror here. So over time, we'll get better video quality and I'll figure different things out. But it's a learning process, friends. We're not starting with perfection because I would never start if I waited for all the perfect ducks to be in a row. And that's a huge element of ADHD is procrastination due to perfectionism. So we're trying to avoid that here. If you have helpful comments that could, make things better or are more to your liking, feel free to drop it in my comment section. But only helpful ones, right? Because hurt people hurt people. If you don't like what you're seeing, you can scroll. That's fine. There's no harm in that. But that's honestly one of the reasons I don't post as much on YouTube is because it's a far more supportive community over on TikTok. So hopefully that's not the case with this series. Hopefully all goes well. But yeah. So, late diagnosed ADHD. I was diagnosed in my late 20s, actually, right at the beginning of the pandemic. That was fun. But when I was a kid, a doctor had mentioned to my parents, I'm pretty sure she's got ADD, which, fun little side note, ADD. That's not a diagnosis anymore, friends. So if you've got a doctor telling you you have ADD, you're not up to date. Might be concerning. I don't know. But yeah, we no longer use ADD. Everything is ADHD now. But there are three different subtypes. So ADHD inattentive type is what we would have called ADD in the past. So this is going to be more of having struggles with attention and focus as the primary issues. So, you might be more of a daydreamer, really trailing off in your head as people are trying to talk to you. If you're already getting bored with this video, that might be inattention. Um, so just some things to kind of be conscious of. Um, but then there is ADHD hyperactive type, which is more of what most people kind of grew up knowing ADHD as. Um, and then we have the combined type. So you're going to have symptoms of both inattention and hyperactivity. And I think it's really important to note that ADHD is a spectrum condition, a lot like autism, where everyone with ADHD is going to have different experiences. While there are shared experiences, they're not all going to be identical. That's one of the reasons that these conditions can be difficult to diagnose, is because there are overlapping traits, but there's not this like blanket, this is what every single person with ADHD has. And they haven't found a gene for it yet. So that's part of the complication in the diagnostic process. Um, Other complications are going to be things like the reason I didn't get a diagnosis when I was younger. I had good grades, so I couldn't have ADHD. That's crazy. Well, what? You do well in school, so no, I wasn't diagnosed for that reason, which is just wild to me. Um, I was gonna use sunscreen primer, but it's gonna be dark by the time I'm going out of the house. So you know what? We'll save that. We're recession prepping, so we keep those products to when I actually need them. We use normal primer from Elf because I'm not bougie. I don't care. This stuff works. Um, yeah, we're gonna do face first and then we'll do eyes because we're just going with like a neutral look today. Um, so yeah. Oh, and I already did my skincare before, so I guess I should note that. I have had to use Aquaphor because for some reason my eyeballs decided that they were gonna get eczema. So that's been a fun thing. Like you can see like one of the patches and I have like a little bit going on here. It's a blast. Ooh, I'm just realizing how washed out I've looked. If I turn, I don't know if I can edit that later. I don't know. We'll find out, I suppose. Um, yeah, so little hack, if you are impatient while you're waiting for different skincare products to dry, hi, little mini fan. It's amazing. It works so well. My ADHD definitely appreciates being able to simplify the process a little. So yeah, so we have these three different types of ADHD, and I definitely am the combined type. So way back when my pediatrician had like mentioned, oh, I think she's maybe got ADD. The reason I did not receive a formal diagnosis at that point is because I got good grades. That's it. That was the reason. Because there was this not part of diagnostic criteria, but this notion that if you were, someone who got good grades, that you could not possibly have ADD or ADHD, which is not the case. As many late diagnosed folks know, ADHD did show up for us earlier in life, but just in different ways. So, whereas my sister received a diagnosis when she was younger because she did have certain challenges in school, I still struggled in school, but I struggled Socially, I struggled with, doing my work on time or being able to break down my work. Oh my God, I had no idea how to split my work into smaller pieces so that I could do it in like, over a week's time instead of just cramming it all into one night. So that sucked. Um, okay. Setting spray in between before we blend. All right. So this is the part though where I'm like, don't have my glasses on. And I normally lean super close to my little mirror here. So we're gonna figure this out together, folks. Oh, yeah, this will be fun. Covering up that stupid eczema. Ugh. And it's like if I miss um putting that Aquaphor on like morning or night, it's so much worse. So just that like one little spot is nothing compared to what it's kind of been like. We're gonna blend this in. And anyway, resuming our tale. So yeah, because I did well and got decent grades, I did not receive a diagnosis. Now, the one thing I've kind of come to terms with is if I had gotten a diagnosis when I was in school, it probably would not have benefited me much because the information that we have about ADHD now, a lot of the more recent research, that has been super helpful to my adult diagnosis would have been stuff that I would have never known about myself as a kid. There was also this idea of like if you had ADHD, then you were going to get stigmatized for having this condition when tons of people have ADHD. Like it's not a rare condition. It is, however, a heritable condition. It's not brought on by vaccines or red dye or watching too much TV. Those are myths, friends. Know your myths. Um, so yeah, um, I really don't think that having an actual diagnosis at the time would have actually benefited me. Because all it would have given me was more time to work on things, and more time was not what I needed. I needed to learn how my brain worked. That was the thing that's made life with ADHD so much easier is understanding and accepting that my brain works this way. Because when I stopped pushing on myself that I have to be neurotypical, I have to have, you know, all these strategies in place so that my brain works better. Um, that wasn't helping me out. Not even a little bit. That was actually making it worse. That stress was making it harder for me to do things. So through college, I continued to have the same challenges that I had had through high school, right? Waiting until the very last minute to do papers. Um, the I did go to I did was part of a radio TV program in school. So that was something that like I couldn't procrastinate as much on certain things because you needed hours to be able to edit certain projects. So that did help me start to get like slightly better time management, but still a challenge. Um, and really where I saw like my biggest challenge was out of school. I decided, you know what? I'm gonna do real estate like my dad. So I thought, this is gonna be a great new career path. I changed my mind. Originally, I was gonna go to school for occupational therapy, and then I was looking at special ed, and then I did radio TV, and then in the end, wound up going into a career in special education after all, but not having that initial degree that was supposed to be what I was going to do. So mm, that's blended enough. I think it's a process, folks. We gotta do the whole thing, and then there's powder, and then we blend more later, and it won't look so line like it's so dark, like I don't know. just looks blocky right now. That's what I'm looking for. Those are the words. I can do this. We got this, friends. Um, yeah, so college continued to be the same challenges, if not more, because let's face it, you have less support. That's why there's so many people who, once they hit high school, it starts getting more difficult because depending on, how your teachers are, they may not be on top of you for turning in your work and such. Then, college, they're definitely not on top of you. It's all, you got to do your own thing. You got to figure it out. And then when we get to adult life, then there's no one on top of you. You might have a boss that helps you figure some things out, but after that part of the process, like you're on your own. And that is part of why, it feels like ADHD symptoms get worse at this point because we're finally doing it independently, but we don't know how to do it independently. Um, so yeah, it's tough. It's very tough. But we figure out how to get through. There may be bumps and bruises along the way, but we're still standing. We get through it somehow. Um, so yeah, I then once I was done with college, decided, yeah, I'm gonna be a real estate agent. This is the thing for me. I'm gonna do this just like my dad. And honestly, real estate would have been a good career for me if I knew how to manage my time because the social aspect my ADHD did very well with. I was very personable. I had no problem getting clients because at the time there was still like phone answering that was a factor. Um, so yeah. Also, I'm contouring the crap out of my jaw right now because I have a tongue tie, which is a common comorbidity with ADHD. Fun fact. And when my tongue tie is like really bad and acting up and it's tighter than it normally is, it tends to pull like everything in my neck forward, and then it makes my jawline disappear, which is annoying. So that is what we're doing with all this contour here. And again, gonna blend, don't worry. It will look less blocky in the end. You gotta trust the process. I hated hearing that for the longest time because I was like, what? I don't. My autism would get very annoyed. Like, I just want to know how it's going to turn out. I want to know all the answers. I know now, like, what to expect. So that's helped. That has helped. But anywho, um, so yeah, I decided I was going to be a real estate agent. Got this. I'm going to do great at this. I did not. I made a few sales, but my perfectionism was ultimately my biggest downfall because I was too scared to ask for help. And now, mind you, I was working with my dad. Like, it's not like it was some stranger who, would be a jerk if I didn't know something. Like, it was my parent. It wasn't, in retrospect, it wasn't that difficult to ask, but I think because it was my parent, I wanted to do well and just know the stuff, be like, yeah, I've been watching you for years and I've got this. I am a great real estate agent too. So I ultimately think that was like probably the reason why it was harder for me to ask for that support and to work through it. But I can't change the past. The other thing was, ooh, I am super close. All right, folks. We're gonna get up close and personal here. Actually, you know what? Let's try this. Yeah, we definitely gotta blend here more. Working on it. We'll get there. Oh, I gotta bake. Almost forgot. Because that's one of the things we're gonna blend out. All right, cool. We're getting there. So yeah, I was like, oh, I'm gonna be this amazing real estate agent that That's who I am. Realtor to the stars, folks. It was not. It was not. And then I got a boyfriend and he was love bombing the heck out of me. So did I want to spend my free time outside of my day-to-day job doing real estate? No, because at this time, folks, I was working as an electronics specialist over at Target so that I could pay for my gas and things to like build my real estate career. But then I'm working all these hours at this job, and then I have a new boyfriend, and I'm hyper fixated because, again, he was love bombing me. So I just wanted to spend all of my time with him, and that was also his expectation because narcissist. Um, and I didn't prioritize the job. So I wound up not doing as successfully in real estate. And then ultimately that's what led me back to special education was I needed a more stable career where someone told me this is when you need to show up every day and this is when you go home every day and this is what your job is. That's what I needed. And that structure was very helpful because then I wound up working in special education for over 8 years in total. Um, I helped a lot of kids. It was a great career for me initially. And then, COVID happened. It changed how education functions. And I realized that I just didn't want to do that anymore. I didn't want to. We're gonna get close again. Sorry, guys. How's the top of my head look? Woohoo. All right. Sorry, guys. How's the top of my head look? Woohoo. All right. Yeah, those look even. Okay. Wow. I will say it looks crazy on the in-between parts here. Like, but we're getting there. So, continuing on. Um, So I have this boyfriend and he's occupying my free time. And then I wound up moving in with him and then we wound up getting our own place elsewhere. It was my first apartment, being out on my own. I had to figure out a lot of stuff and I didn't know how to do any of it. Um, so I really struggled and I thought for a long time, I was like, oh, well, I can't keep my room clean now because I don't have my own house. So when I have my own house, like I'll care about it more and I'll do better. And then I had my own place and it was not oh, I have my own place now. So I really care about it. It was, I don't know how to do any of this. And oh my gosh, there's so many more things on my plate having a place to myself. I have to clean a kitchen and a bathroom and vacuum. And it's not just keep your bedroom tidy anymore. It's keep an entire household tidy. That was tough for me with undiagnosed ADHD. And I felt like a failure. That's the truth of it. I felt like a total screw up. I was like, I don't know what I'm doing. I'm just the worst. Like this is the narrative I told myself. That I just wasn't good enough. That was why I couldn't keep my house clean because I sucked. Not because I didn't know how, because no one ever really taught me and um I don't know how to break things down. And oh yeah, I struggle with task initiation. But I didn't know all these pieces. So this led to lots and lots of fights because the expectation was that I'd be Susie Homemaker. And, there was a part of me that wanted to be, right? There was a part of me that wanted to be successful at keeping house. And I just, again, didn't know why I wasn't. Um, but this was a running challenge through that entire relationship. I was yelled at over and over and over again for what a failure I was at maintaining the household. Um, and that was really traumatic for me. Because I already felt like a failure. My real estate career had failed. I had gotten sick in college, so I never wound up getting my 4-year degree. I only had an associate's degree. Like there were all these things that I already felt like I wasn't good enough. And let's let's not even talk about the amount of teachers and classmates growing up that picked on me for being too talkative because that was one of the ways my hyperactivity presented in school. So I felt for a very long time like I was not worthy. And then when the person, you know, you you commit your life to and you make vows to, then just continues to perpetuate that narrative because you don't know how to do the dishes because you just feel overwhelmed by everything going on in your life. Yeah, that's not fun. That's not a position that I want anyone to ever have to experience. But yeah, it was a big struggle for me. Um, Little makeup tip, by the way, when you're doing like shimmery products, they do apply a lot nicer when you use your finger. Just so you know. All right, getting close for a second so I can make sure this blend is looking good. All right, so resuming my tale. So yeah, ultimately, all of this compiled after years of it just being an unhealthy relationship in so many ways. And there's more I can say, but we'll save that for the memoir, folks, because realistically, you know, at the end of the day, I've grown from all the challenges that I've experienced in my life. They've made me who I am, and I do believe in the butterfly effect that like if one thing was different, who knows where I'd be right now. So, you know, there's that, I guess. But I continue to have the same task initiation challenges even after my marriage had ended. I was in a place completely on my own, and it was a little easier when it was just me I had to pick up after, but it still was hard. And I still couldn't figure out why it was so hard to do all of these things. Um, and then 2020 comes around. And week 1 of the pandemic, I am going on and on to my therapist about how I just don't understand Dr. H. I want to be cleaning and organizing and like using this time because who knows how long we'll be out of school. Like this might only be a couple of weeks, like they say. So, I want to take advantage of this time and like use it for my benefit. Um, and we're just setting the brows because I use a setting spray to like get that crispness. So then we want to set with some powder. Little extra tip. I don't know. Do you guys want more of those through here? It feels so ADHD of me to be like giving little side tips as I'm trying to tell this tale of like how I finally got to an ADHD diagnosis. But whatever. You tell me what you want to see. Um, but resuming where we left off. Um, so I had moved into my apartment on my own a few months before the pandemic had started, and I wanted to do so many different things. I had so many boxes left. Now, like taking a couple of months to unpack some boxes, like that's normal. That makes sense. But at this point, I had so much that was still left to be unpacked that I like honestly just started throwing it in the attic because I had a walk-up attic, so it was easy enough to do that. But but it was just so overwhelming to like even have it in my space. Also, I am doing a little half lash, so I'm gonna add my glue to these now so that it is dry by the time I get to that step. Need to find like a little shelf or something. This could work. So if I do this, it seems like you can still see me. Again, we're learning together here, friends. This is a process. We're figuring it out. We'll get there. This is just the first video. It'll get better. I'm sure of it. This is like how my podcast was. You know, it took a learning curve, but then we made it through. So just want to blend out these corners a bit. Okay. Yeah. All right. So anyway, 2020 comes along. I'm just on like a very ADHD rant, just telling my therapist, I just don't understand. Like, I want to do this. It's like, why can't I do the thing I want to do? That's so frustrating. And I'm just going on and on and on. And she just cuts me off and she's like, Amanda, I think we need to medicate you for ADHD. And I'm like, I have ADHD? And then we had a whole conversation about how like it was suspected when I was younger, but I never got a formal diagnosis. And she was like, yeah, pretty sure you do. So she gave me some testing to do at home. And then we spent the next 2 sessions like going through diagnostic criteria and getting me evaluated and figuring out that I totally had ADHD the whole time.
Oh my God. The whole time.
And that was probably the reason that I couldn't be a good little Susie homemaker for my expectant ex-husband, because I I struggled with task initiation. How are you supposed to keep a clean house if you don't even know how to start? Because a task like clean the kitchen is not just a single task. There's a lot of steps involved in that being something on your to-do list. So it can feel overwhelming. And ooh, that'll definitely be a video is talking about task initiation strategies. That's definitely a thing we'll do together, folks. The little second mirror. That's I think the way we're gonna do things here. So anyhow, um, so she and I talked through the criteria and everything, and it's when I got my formal diagnosis and I hyper fixated, folks, because I had gotten a very bare minimum amount of training on ADHD specifically. Definitely had more training on autism and executive functioning. But you know, I had the same preconceived notion in my head as so many other people do with ADHD that no, it's just you can't sit still. And like, sure, that explained all of the comments on report cards growing up of like, Amanda won't stay in her seat. Um, but that did not, uh, you know, help me really understand like why my brain works the way that it does. And really learning about executive dysfunction in adult terms, because I had only been educated as far as like in the school setting. Um, but as how it looks for, you know, someone just sitting at home on their couch and stuck in a freeze response. That was life-changing, was figuring that out and then starting to apply different new strategies to try and work through the challenges that came from the ADHD. Um, all right, we're close to done with our story and close to done with our look too, friends. So woohoo. Just some final blend. We need to do a spritz. Best setting spray ever. Urban Decay's All Nighter. This is probably one of the only like brand name, like fancier products I have. Everything else is pretty much drugstore, or I had BoxyCharm for a while. I had a lot of stuff from BoxyCharm, which was super fun for my ADHD, by the way. Like just to get a little surprise box every month. It was just a lovely hit of dopamine. And then like trying out the products and stuff. Oh, what a joy. Um, yeah, yeah, we're gonna do this combo. Um, do a nude underneath. So I started learning all these different things. I started medication. I decided to go with a non-stimulant just because of other meds that I was taking for other chronic illnesses. It just didn't make sense to stop things that were working and helping my other symptoms just to try out a stimulant that may or may not work. And I took Strattera for a few months and it was effective. Trying to think, like when I've watched other people do makeup videos and tutorials, like what do they do at the point where they have to use their mouth to talk, but then apply makeup? I think they just pause. Okay, fun stuff. I don't know. Is this fun? Are you guys enjoying yourselves? I hope so. Let me know. Again, let me know in the comments what you like, what you don't like. We're gonna figure this out together. But I think this has potential to be a fun series. I became medicated for the ADHD. Aren't you impressed that I'm like picking up my story? What? That's crazy. Yes, no, folks, I do have ADHD, but I've been working very hard for several years to learn how my brain works and to build up different skills so that I can do better with things like working memory. There are different like exercises that you can do that actually help working memory. It's crazy. Now, am I as good at doing this during my like more inattentive week out of the month? No, no, no. That is when we'll be following a script, folks, because you got to accommodate yourself. When it is harder, writing it down, as annoying as that is, it is an effective strategy, but it's not as simple as just write it down. Like there's other stuff to it. And that's as we get through like doing different series through this, different topics, like we're going to talk about all these things. I'm very excited. Um, and if you want to like skip ahead, I do have a podcast called Coordinating Chaos with the ADHD Lady. That's some of the other long form content on here are different episodes from that, especially interviews I've done with different guests on the podcast. It's exciting stuff. Um, but yeah, so let's apply these lashes and finish up our story time. And I do want to just add in this is a total, completely off the subject anecdote. I am going to karaoke tonight. And I did work during the day. And this is the second time I've done my makeup today. I did a very, very like quick minimal routine earlier for appointments and accountability crew. But I didn't have it in me to shower this morning. So I threw my hair up. I did a little quick sanitary little routine. And then I was like, you know what? I'm just going to shower later because you are allowed to do that. Like, these are things that we can get very easy to get stuck in black and white. Be like, no, 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 no. Like, that's just wrong. Like, no, you have to shower before you start work. And now, if I was going out, I would maybe have, fought myself a little bit harder, but I wasn't. So, hmm. But to wrap up our story, so I worked very hard on trying to implement new strategies while I was medicated because having the medication made it easier for me to form the neural pathways necessary to turn these new strategies into habits. Have I been consistent with every single thing that I've applied since receiving my diagnosis in 2020? No, I have ADHD. That's part of it. It's just being nice to yourself about a condition that you can't control. And that is probably actually the hardest thing to work on when you have ADHD is accepting that this is a disability for a reason. But yeah, I learning how my brain worked and accepting that this is how my brain works. It's not, acceptance doesn't mean you have to stay here, but it means that you understand where you're starting from, right? Because with ADHD, it is so easy for us to just want to start at the finish line. We just want to jump to the end. All right, I know what I need to do. I want to work out at the gym 5 days a week. Boom. Tomorrow I start working at the gym 5 days a week. No, folks, like that is not how you build a habit. If you are going to the gym 0 days a week right now, to get to that 5 days a week, that's probably going to take you like at least 3 months to build up to that. Um, but it's not bad that that is the case either. Like that's the bit. That's the important part that we have to remember. You're not a failure for needing to do things different ways, folks. You're human and you're a human with ADHD. So it's not just do it because just do it is a slogan. It's not a strategy. It's try different, right? Just because someone says that this way of doing a thing is the right way or the way that you should do it doesn't mean it's the right way for you. That might be the right way for them. But if you're getting to the end result that you're looking for by making these accommodations for yourself, that's not bad. That's not wrong. It's going to make your life a lot more livable. And I am 5 years into my diagnosis, and every day I work with people who are at all different points in their journeys. And as a coach, I get to help them figure these things out, what is the strategy that's going to be more effective than just use a planner, right? Sometimes we have to try 10 different planning methods, whether it's digital things, whether it's different kinds of lists and stuff that all like works cohesively with each other. For me, for a long time, I had a paper planner and then a digital calendar that was part of my daily routine was putting these two things together every day, because that's part of it too, right? Like we need to build habit around using the tools. So it's so much more intricate than just do it. You're not failing. You just haven't tried different yet. So we're going to talk about different. And since this is a whole new thing that I'm doing here, drop it in the comments what you want to learn, what you want to hear about, what pieces of ADHD and autism are you curious to learn more on. I have an idea in my head of where I want to go with things, but I I'm not doing this for me. I'm doing this to help people. So if there's something that's going to be more helpful than the plan I have, I'm here for it. But if you do want to help me out, uh, subscribe to the channel, drop a like and a comment, because the more we can boost the content, the more people get to see it. So yeah. All right. Don't forget to follow me on all my other socials, the ADHD Lady. And like I said, I've got a ton of stuff over, like especially on TikTok, 'cause that's where I started everything. So we'll maybe talk about that next. How I became an ADHD coach. I don't know. We'll see. But I am looking forward to seeing you all next time. Have a wonderful rest of your day, friends. And yeah, bye. Occurred to me that after we've done this whole process, maybe you'd want to see the final look. So Here it is, folks. Ta-da! We're wearing a little maxi dress, one of my favorite jean jackets. We've got some fun jewelry to go with the bubble braids. Yeah, this was fun. All right. Do you care about the final look? Is that a thing? I don't know. Also, I changed my glasses because I feel like this just goes better with the rest of the vibe. So, all right. Bye.